Hey everybody, welcome to Zelic Media's PC Build Guide tutorial, where we get to walk through these steps together of getting this computer up and running, and hopefully this will help you get yours as well. If you are a first-time builder, don't worry, I am as well, so we'll be able to see if I do it right, and if I didn't break this thing. Let's find out! Maybe I broke my CPU? I'm excited to have you here today because this is my first PC build ever. And if this is your first time as well, welcome along to the journey. If you're a veteran, feel free to provide any useful information that I missed or screwed up so that I can improve in the future. I try to timestamp it in appropriate places for you so that if you need to go back and move forward, feel free to go ahead. And I try to include links along with those timestamps. So if you have questions that I did not answer, feel free to go to those links and explore further. None of those links are sponsoring me. I just found them useful when I was going through the process the first time of learning and trying to grasp all the information. Eventually, this is going to be my everyday rig used for editing, gaming, and hopefully streaming in the future. So if you join me for that, I welcome you and thank you again for your support. Now we're finally officially ready to get the PC build on its way. Where you want to start is with just a motherboard, the CPU, the RAM, the cooling, and if you do have NVMe M.2, bring that with you. You'll also want some kind of toolkit. I've got the iFixit kit. So what we're going to do first is actually take this out. I'm holding it by the heat sink and the I/O, and for the most part, anything you do is going to be all right. Taking a note of your layout of your motherboard. This is where your CPU goes. This is where your RAM goes. This is where that NVMe M.2 will go. Your 20+4 power and your CPU power right there. First things first, the most daunting is getting your CPU in. What you'll want to prepare by getting your little latch open. There you go, that's open. Doesn't feel like it's very open or very secure. There we go. That was a bit of a struggle to come out. Here is our CPU. Very carefully, I'm going to do this as slowly as possible. Do not drop, do not bend, do not break it. And what you'll want is just a little triangle right up there. And there's a little triangle right up here. So let's see. Very tiny printed, but it's there. So let's see, are there any other markers? Nothing that I can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it in ever so slightly. Okay. That's in. Little push, side to side, no pressure, just see if it does. Push it down. I give it a little jiggle jiggle, and our CPU is in. And I think that was actually the most terrifying portion of it all. How about I put in some RAM? Since that was another exciting part. It looks like you want to pull these apart. Don't know if that one does. Okay, so that side does not come up down. Correct. And with the RAM, there are slots. There is a slot in the DDR4 version. I believe DDR5, the new one, actually has it centered, but this is off center ever so slightly. So what you'll want to do is you want to match up those notches, because if you don't match them up correctly, they won't go in. So, am I doing something wrong? I mean, I kind of fix cars. Maybe I put it in backwards. Let's find out. No, I did not put it in backwards. So, what I'm going to do is flip that around. Okay, that feels a lot better. I'm going to push down evenly, or not so evenly. I've noticed that everything seems to have very tight clearances. For example, when I put in the power, okay, it's in, and it kind of shifted up by itself. But I'm just going to pull that lever up and it should be in. Whew, that was exciting. So as I was saying, everything on this motherboard seems to have some tight clearances because the USB, when we did the flashback BIOS on this motherboard, the USB didn't want to go in. When I plugged in the power for the 20+4, it also didn't want to go in or come out very nicely. Let's get the other one in. Alright. See. Ooh. Part of this build was to see how it would actually go with a newbie. Okay, really? Why are you struggling? There are a lot of professional PC builders out there that make it look really, really easy. And I'm doing this for the first time, so I'm pretty nervous. So, push that in. Ooh, that was a little crunchy. Okay, locked in. Well, let's see what happens. As you notice that they are separated by one slot, and you've got to populate the furthest one and then skip one, populate the third one in. That's what the manual states as well. That'll allow you to access dual channel speeds and performance. Let's get our M.2 in here. And these have screws in them. What I like about the iFixit is that it's magnetic. So, or not magnetic. Okay. Okay, why did that one conversion? Oh, it doesn't even want to come out. Okay, that's why. This one has a C-clamp on there, so it doesn't even want to come out. And that is a cover for a thermal pad underneath to also assist in cooling. NVMe M.2 here, which I just never opened. Wow. Note to self, bring a pocket knife next build. So there you go. That is our NVMe M.2. So I'm going to put it in there at about 30 degrees. Okay, we'll drop it slowly. You can see that it kind of just rests. Alright. That thermal pad goes a lot further. I want to lock that into place because you can see that that screw that wouldn't come out earlier is associated with that. Nothing to hold this down. So I need to go hunting for another screw. Be right back. Note to self, make sure you pull out all your stuff. And look at that. Found the screws that go to that. Beautiful. That's the beauty about the iFixit tray. I have those notches in there that you can just throw your screws in. And now I'm going to hold that down while I thread that in. Beautiful. Awesome. That looks awesome. Now, very satisfying peel. Don't touch it. This is the fun part about building computers. Or at least the first time. You don't know what you're doing wrong. And this is why that's why I wanted to film this. So you could see first time build, how it's going, no one to help you out, just kind of going off of what I remember studying and seeing if I don't break this board. And if you watched my first video, this is that motherboard that I used my MacBook Pro to create a BIOS flashback for. And I won't know if that worked until I put some of these components together. I can cheat right now and put the power in and the GPU plug into a monitor and see if my BIOS will come up. But where's the fun in that? I'll have to struggle later. Good for you. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have to take this bracket off because the cooler that I'm using is Dark Rock 4 by Bequiet, and that monstrosity will sit right here. Gosh, that's going to look so good. So they provided a screwdriver. Will that work for this? Awesome. Is it magnetic? It is. Look at that. Okay. Oh, that one was in there. Tighter than the first. So these are going to screw a different bracket onto the plate on the back that will hold the CPU cooler to the motherboard. I hope I was recording that whole time. I don't know if you heard, the camera shut off, and that'll be one thing I look forward to doing is upgrading the equipment to something that's actually designed for video. Because at the moment, all my stuff is photo, since I used to do a lot more photography stuff. Alright, so I took those brackets that came with the motherboard off, and now I will be installing the ones that Bequiet provides. I'll also be putting a list of all my components that I use for this build. So don't worry about it. In the instructions, they have you putting on these little standoffs first. They make it pretty dummy proof, with one side definitely being larger than the other. Ooh, I don't remember. It looks like the notches go on the inside, just like that. Cool. Alright, let's got one of these. Of course, this process is only designed for my CPU cooler. Every single one is going to be different. Gosh. One thing I might have someone yelling at me for is not ensuring that I'm grounded. But I guess part of the test will be, let's see if it can be not necessarily grounded 100% of the time and not break his computer. And if I do, then I'll know for next time. There are ways to ground yourself properly. There are ways that don't work. For example, they sell Bluetooth wireless grounding. That is not how grounding works. There are ways to connect a wristband to your power source. There's a way to touch the power source or something metal to ground yourself. So this thing will be ready to be built in here shortly. I just want to do a test fit real quick. Awesome. So one thing you want to be careful about would be the clearance of your RAM. I'm going to peel off this plastic, otherwise you will not have thermal connectivity. I will not have good contact with the CPU. That's something I probably should have studied on the phrasing on that one a little bit more. So an important part of the CPU process, which I have not mentioned yet, is thermal compound. Bequiet did provide its own thermal compound, and they recommend using a pea size, but then whenever they say to put on a pea size, and it never looks like a pea size to me, but what I'm going to do is, I like the letter X. That looks cool to me. That squirted out a little quicker than I thought. That way the corners will get touched and there should be contact. I'm just kind of wiping it off at all times. The thermal compound makes sure to remove any of the air gaps and imperfections between the CPU and this plate right there, and allows it to seal and seat properly. Oh boy. Oh boy. No. Okay, can you stop spinning, please? There we go. That was fun. I'm excited to see what happens. These are actually false. They don't hold anything but the hole. And what you'll do is you'll feed that through, grab your screw. Woo. Even pressure at this point matters because I didn't do a fantastic job of making sure it didn't move. Fun fact, I've got the Polish version here, And be quiet, I found a issue here. All your steps are in Polish except for fastening the screws down. Be quiet, there's a little quality control there. It's getting tight. I like that. I don't think that's going anywhere. What's nice is you'll be able to hold it by the cooler moving forward. We've got our thermal compound, M.2, RAM, cooler. Now I'm going to put in the other fan. Oh gosh, I really don't like how that feels. Ooh, didn't like that, but it worked. So, I've been gone for a few hours because after this memory card got full, that camera overheated, and then my computer crashed. So it took about 6 hours for it to get back up, and I had to make sure that I could back it up in case something were to go completely wrong. But we're back. The only update to the computer so far is that I put the fan on and I plugged in the cables to the CPU fan header. The wiring for that particular fan was being a little futzy with me, but that's okay. We can move on. I laid down the case here, so the back side is on the bottom, and we are looking at what will be the glass window. And in here you can notice there's some fans, there's some big ones here. You can hold two 120 or two 140 millimeter fans up top, or a 240 or 280 radiator. And that's essentially just measuring the fans. This is a 120, for example. In here, when you get your case, one thing you want to make sure before putting your motherboard in is that the motherboard standoffs are here. And you can see there's 9. These will be used for an ATX form factor motherboard. Got the motherboard attached to the fan, or the cooler attached to that, and we're just going to drop her in slowly. Alright, just trying to make sure I line up with the standoffs. Standoffs are used so that you don't short your board. I think I got them all in for the most part. Oh, that one felt good. Okay, now they're in. I don't know if you can see the fan cable that I put in here. I might actually wire that in from that first grommet to the second, just to make it look a little neater. Case bag. It'll come with a bunch of screws, all different styles. There are longer ones for in case you do want to use a radiator. And then there are different shaped heads for either being the PSU, the power supply one, the motherboard screws. There's a standoff kit in case you need to move the standoffs to other locations, and there should be extra standoffs in here as well. And our motherboard screws have a little lip to them. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now we're going to grab our screwdriver. Luckily it's being magnetic. You'll hold it until it's in. What I'll do is I'll only thread it a little bit, and then sort of in a cross pattern like you would do the nuts on your car wheel. That way you can equalize the pressure so that it'll be lined up more properly. I would assume it's fairly normal to struggle during a PC build. And if that makes me seem like I don't know what I'm doing, well, that's okay, because I'm having a good time, other than my equipment failure. Well, like I said, we'll find out if I break anything with all these little droppings and whatnot. Alright, the motherboard is in. We've got a lot of our components in. We've got our motherboard, our RAM, our cooling, our M.2, which is our storage, and for the main component Red Devil by Power Color. Radeon 6700 XT. This thing looks beautiful. And it's going to sit right in there. So, I believe this is a dual slot card, which means that it takes 2 of these slots. But yes, that looks like it's going to fit just peachy. Oh, that's going to look so good. Don't throw away the thumb screws. Those are actually going to be used to hold your graphics card. There we go. That clicks open just like the RAM did. And it's slotted, so it only goes in one direction as well. I'm going to try to line this up a little slower than when I did the RAM. Ooh, that went a lot easier. GPU is in. I'm going to take those same thumb screws as earlier. There we go. Okay. Extra tight. The next step will be to flip that over and start wiring stuff. Let's see if anything will fall apart as I put it standing. That's just the screw we lost earlier. And there you go. Beautiful. Awesome job, guys. We've been on quite the adventure so far, and I'm happy of how far we've come. Now that we've got most of the components in there, all that's really left is making sure you plug in your CPU power, your 20+4 power pin to your motherboard. You've got power that needs to go into your graphics card. Then don't forget any buttons that you have for your case that need to be plugged in. Usually all the instructions are in not only your motherboard but your case manual as well. It's been a long day, and I'm probably just going to do a time lapse of me plugging everything in and wiring the back, and after that we'll see if she boots up. Well, good morning everybody, for me at least. It's the second day. After doing the cable management and plugging everything in, it took about 4 hours for me last night. It helps if you make sure you pull every cable out of the bag. So that's one helpful tip, alongside of making sure you don't plug in your GPU yet, is make sure you have everything laid out, ready to go, and read the instructions. I spent maybe an hour and a half of that time reading, making sure I was plugging stuff in the right spot. Some of the plugs, once again, were tight, so be gentle, just make sure you're lined up, and then you'll be all right. I have not fired the computer up yet. I was waiting to share the moment with you, and I apologize if, let's say, you did want me to film wiring everything together. If that's something you would like, let me know, and I will be replacing some stuff anyways, so I can tear it down and build it up for you. Now, as you can see how beautiful it is, I love the sleek black look to it all. Not a fan of this, and when I said I was replacing things, I've got cable mod cables coming in, ready to replace those when those come in, along with the 20+4 pin connector and the CPU power. But I replaced that back fan. I've got the 2 top ones installed, and everything should be plugged in. I'll show you what the back looks like. So I routed cables where I could, zip tied them where I can. I've got an extra PCIe cable for when the cable mod cables come in. I'll plug that in along with the other one. This came with the LianLi fans. It's their little hub for all the power and LED control. This is the one that was pre-installed with the LianLi case. On recommendation, I don't know if they did this in a newer version, would be to create a more compatible system where they can connect to each other, because I tried connecting the 3-pin fan to that fan and it wouldn't even fit. I'm going to go get the monitor, keyboard, mouse, power hooked up to the computer now, and we're going to watch this thing fire up, hopefully. Remember to plug in your monitor to your GPU if you're using a discrete graphics card. Moment of truth. Everybody ready? also helps if you turn on the switch. Okay, moment of truth. Woo! We have lights, we have power. Will it post though? It's a lot of lights. CPU. Light is on. Don't know if that means good or bad. Maybe I broke my CPU. Alright. Well, this was fun. Hopefully I'll figure this out. But it does look nice. It looks nice. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. If you have got any other video ideas, let me know. I'm going to figure out what's going on with this and if I broke it or not. Maybe the BIOS update didn't work. If that's the case, then that'll be fun. Maybe I'll get a lower gen CPU and see if that works. If that's the case, then I just didn't update it correctly, and maybe Mac can't do a motherboard BIOS update. Have a good one, guys. Thank you. Well, it's a few hours later, and I figured it out. What I did first was I took the flash drive, tried doing the flashback again, didn't work. Then I went back to the computer, checked. I might have downloaded the beta version of the latest updates, so I made sure to go the one before that. That was still good, and I formatted the flash drive again, put it in, plugged her in, did a flashback, still nothing. Then I took the entire computer apart. I took out the GPU, the CPU cooler, the RAM, and I did another flash with that flash drive. Nothing. Then I thought, you know what, let's just see if I have another flash drive laying around somewhere. And I found an 8GB one, formatted it the same way, downloaded the latest, but not the beta version of the update, and it worked. It sounded different when it booted up because I put just the CPU in there without the cooler, and I only wanted to see if it would get past the CPU part, and it recognized it. So I shut down right away, put everything in except for some other components, and we hit the boot screen. Apparently, don't use anything that is over 16 gigabytes of a flash drive. Otherwise, you will run into issues, clearly. And I learned something new today. Now I'm going to kind of take the GPU apart. I don't have my hard drive in there. Just finish up, put everything back together, clean up the cables, and then start installing Windows and updating drivers. So I might film that. If you want to see a video, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Have a good one. Welcome to Zelic Media's PC build guide tutorial. It's getting weird. It's really weird. Hey everybody. Come on. Oh yeah, this is discrete credit card. Welcome to PC Media. What do I want to say? I don't even want to know what I want to say. Motherboard box. Motherboard box. Where is my... I'm on top of the motherboard box. Coffee. We're good.